Just because we were able to feel inspired, we were around other people that were also wanting to be inspired and inspired us. And before you know it, we had our own conversation.
Talk about that whole event experience, which it's changing. I mean, I know we're changing it from the standpoint of how we do things, but it is changing because of, AI. And
what I love is that we really get nitty gritty and strategic and actually pull back the curtain on what we're actively doing. And this year specifically, well, welcome back to She Means Millions.
I mean, why has it got to be welcome? Can't it just be welcome and, great to be here with you?
So great to be here with you. I am getting coached real time. We're getting a lens into the family.
And here I am caught in the middle.
But it's all good because we have a great show planned for you today. We're going to be talking about the importance of just showing up. We're in this thing right now called a trust recession. And I think that the most underrated thing that we could do in our business right now is be in rooms with real people and show that you are not just an AI generated figure. You're actually a person that somebody can know, like, and trust and want to work with. And so I was just curious, when was the last time you got out of your backyard and actually showed up to an event? Because not only is it important for the networking aspect, but the ideas that you get when you get out of your own backyard, right?
There's no question about it. I believe that right now we have so many people have gotten all caught up in, the whole stay at home, what COVID fostered. Mm-hmm. And it's become a pattern that people have kind of, dug into. And whether it's literal or even just metaphorical for them, it's just hard to get up and get out. And I think in today's environment, you got to take a shower and, put on some pants and get out the door. And I keep saying the more you shake, the more you make. When you're shaking hands, you're connecting with people, you're looking at them eye to eye, face to face, having conversations heart to heart, sitting down with people knee to knee. And I think that's the thing that is going to differentiate the people that are going to make the next millions, is understanding how important people are craving that real interaction. They want to know that who they're speaking to is a real person. They want to know that what they're reading represents the voice of the person when they meet them, and not some alter ego that's been ChatGPT or Claude generated and sounds really good. And then you show up and you can't match that level, that tone, that language. And
polish. You're like, "Ooh, I sound so good."
Yeah,
you don't talk that way.
Exactly. And I think it's a way to just throw trust right through the floor. It just falls away when you're not authentic to the data that you're putting out there and, how you show up. And I think people are looking for real, imperfect, authentic people today that still know their game, know what they're talking about, have great success stories, know how to solve the problem of the prospects that they're looking for.
I can't think of anything that I have shown up for that I didn't receive, major benefits from.
Right.
I was reflecting on this as we were, planning this podcast. I really follow the whole concept around just one thing. If you can just get one
thing,
key nugget, you have to get 15, 20 or whatever it gets maybe, but one key nugget. And I'm always amazed at the things that I get out of the room, the people you meet in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just talking and just learning about people,
Mm-hmm.
It's always a surprise, the experience, the ahas that are just generated.
Yeah, like say you see somebody that's speaking and maybe you don't get anything from the speech, but you got something by sitting at the table with other people and listening to them describe their problem, a problem that you can fix, that you can solve, but you've been using an old way of talking about it. You've got lame messaging. It's out of touch. It's out of date. And just by being around other people and asking them, how they solve a certain issue or how they are, what they might be struggling with most, can give you some tips of some language to go back and refresh your copy. And before you know it, you didn't just get one customer. Now you've opened yourself to getting tens, if not hundreds of customers. Don't tell me that wasn't worth it and wouldn't have happened if you didn't show up, right?
I find that the motivation for showing up for events is oftentimes different for me too. Like I have bought tickets to show up for events just because I want to see how the booths and the activation process works. I want to hopefully connect with the people who are putting the booths together and collaborate with them for our conference. Or I've shown up to conferences because they have a really great speaker who I'd love to hear live that I've followed that I'd love to hear. Or I show up for conferences because I feel like the audience is the people that I want to connect with. But what I often am surprised by is the very thing that I think I'm going to a conference for doesn't always end up being the real why
Yeah.
once I'm through it.
Yeah.
Like the connection that I made or the nugget that I got. I mean, when we showed up to that event in Scottsdale in January, we were just showing up to understand kind of the funnel process.
Well, for me, it was elite thinking. So what are the one percenters kind of doing?
Yeah.
You were attracted to their funnel process of how they reached out to you, but we walked away doing something that actually wasn't part of their program at all.
And it wasn't part of the content they were teaching either.
Yeah.
We walked away with this clarity of we're going to 10x the business and we're going to put a timeline on it and we're going to do it in 1,000 days. And that was never that was never a concept that was talked about on the stage. It
Right.
wasn't something that was taught. It wasn't why we ended up going in the first place, but it is the outcome of going and just being open to the inspiration. And it's inspiration that we wouldn't have gotten.
And you know what's interesting, Briana, is here we are, we're family, number one. Secondly, our offices are right next door to each other.
Yeah.
Literally, we could talk to each other through the wall.
Yeah.
And we have from time to time when we're getting on a Zoom or something like that. But and I spend the night at your house, on Thursdays. So we have time there. I mean, we just have so much time together. And it literally took getting out of Dallas and getting on a plane and sitting and taking in information in our own ways and then going out to dinner.
Yeah.
It was really in the going out to dinner and, running back to the hotel and getting comfortable and going out to dinner and then just processing what we were feeling inspired to do and ending up changing the whole direction, literally the direction of eWomen Network. All just because we were able to feel inspired. We were around other people that were also wanting to be inspired and inspired us. And before you know it, we had our own conversation, totally not related to what we were at the event for, and came back with a whole new direct. Called you because we didn't want to walk in and you go like, "What happened to these?"
That's a common thing with us. I feel like there should be a disclaimer when Sandra and Briana go to an event together because we went to ClickFunnels conference one year and then we called Dad and we said, "So there's this $150,000 program and I think we should do it."
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, it's for all three of us. 150 per person.
Yeah. What do you think?
What do you think?
Well, what was interesting about it was I actually called my CFO at the time to say, "Hey, listen, you're going to see this ginormous charge on the credit card, and you're probably going to get flagged for it to be fraud. And so please call me." And I explained it to him or whatever. And I noticed that I didn't get a call back. And I usually get a call back from my CFO pretty quickly. And I'm like, this is really strange. And they were only taking like 15 people into the program. So I was a little nervous that, we were slacking. We needed to get down there and fill out the paperwork. And so I called Kym and I said, "Hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Carrie, my CFO." And he said, "So I heard." I said, "Well, what did you hear?" And he said, Kym said, Carrie said, "You drank the Kool-Aid."
Yeah, she drank the Kool-Aid.
And I said, "Well, you know what I drink. I drink a lot of things. Kool-Aid isn't one of them. So what do you think?" And you did say, if you're that passionate about something that costs that much, it must be great. And
When he said that, I said to him, "Sandra doesn't drink Kool-Aid."
okay, yeah.
Just to set it straight.
Okay.
I was in your corner. So
Yes.
it's been a problem problem there because I understood,
Yeah,
you know.
but it was such a massive investment. You were like, "It must be really good," and, you wouldn't wanna spend that kind of money on that if you didn't think and interestingly enough, the reason why we got in that program is not what we ended up
Getting out of it.
getting out of it.
Yep, and the reason we went to that conference wasn't to sign up for a big program. Everything
Exactly.
about it just led us down a path that ultimately made us millions.
Millions,
You know,
millions of
20%
dollars.
difference. We did
Mhm.
not intend to pay for a program. We went for a completely different reason. ClickFunnels had been a sponsor, right? And then we ended up getting into this program, and then it made us millions.
Within 6 months, we made
Mhm,
our first million off of it,
mhm,
off the idea,
mhm.
of something that wasn't why we were there.
Yeah.
It was something that just got spurred by being in the room, talking to other people, going, "Gosh, we could do a version of that," and the next thing you know, we're going to dinner, we're talking about it, we come back and boom.
And that is the power of showing up
Yes.
because the reason you're showing up isn't necessarily the reason that you're actually there, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that being open to that possibility
Yeah,
is
I think people spend a lot of time setting the intention, making sure, and there's something to be said about that. I don't disagree. We've done that.
yeah.
But I think you have to come in and, have your arms, your hands kind of clenched on what it is around what you want. But you got to loosen your hands a little bit and let it go because there might be something better. If your hands aren't available to catch that blessing, you'll miss it. So it's a little bit of, managing both of those to
Yeah.
be true.
I know I go with a student mentality. I mean, I go there with the whole point of, hey, listen, I'm here to learn, I'm here to meet, I'm here to serve, I'm here to just take it in, just get rid of all barriers, anything that's in my way. And I also, I'm rather strategic when I go to these things too. And, I'm thinking about everything about how, what am I think the word is mirroring back. What am I when people meet me and I greet other people, what are they receiving from me? What kind of energy are they getting from me? Is it positive? Is it upbeat? Is it engaging?
Yeah.
There are a lot of signals people get. But here's the one thing, anybody that's at an event is there um, with in general, the same kind of exploration that you're there for.
Mhm.
Exploring the situation, exploring the opportunities that present themselves.
You would think, Kim, I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that because I think they come with that intention, but I'm always amazed at how distracted people get. I see them, open up their laptop and you can walk behind them and see they're working their inbox, they're responding to emails, they're on their phone. It's one thing if you have your phone out and you're capturing some moments and you're doing social media and your documentation of all that, but just to scroll and to see that they have their earbuds in and they're not really present in the
Yeah.
room. And it's a total turnoff to me. I remember, very, very early on in eWomen Network having the chance to, have lunch with a woman that was making $1 million and she was driving. I was actually in Washington, D.C. visiting. She lived there and she picked me up and she was driving. And as we were going in, she literally put her cell phone at the time in her glove box, which I thought I would never do that.
Mm.
And I made a comment about it. She goes, "Yeah," she says, "we're going to have lunch with a couple of other ladies and I don't take my cell phone. I don't want it to disturb me. I don't want it to vibrate in my purse. I want to be fully present. And just so that you know, it might be a short lunch because if they bring their cell phones out and they have it on the table, I'm not interested in doing business with them." And I
Wow.
just thought, what a qualifier, just noticing how easy it is for people to get distracted. And the truth of the matter is, success is largely about being able to focus
Yeah.
and not getting turned sideways because of the noise and the distractions, and just a vibration can do that. And I think there's something to be said about that. Are you willing for, an hour to be fully present with the people that are around you and trust, just fundamentally trust
Yeah.
that you're supposed to be at that table with those people and give it your all and see what, comes of it and not be distracted by your phone.
Yeah. Well, I'm rather spoiled because I love, when you go to an eWomen Network event where our culture is built around, sharing and, you know, actively engaged in greeting people and talking to people and find out, what do you do, where you're from, that kind of thing. Because it's different. Not all conferences or all events the same from that standpoint either.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
definitely a culture.
They're definitely. I mean, I leave an eWomen Network event and uh, if I don't feel that openness, which you can detect very quickly when you go to go to an event, you know what I mean? If there's if it's got a cliquish feel or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
and I think that's one of the things that I notice with our events. and it's taken us 26 years to get there.
Do you feel like you're drowning in your business? Like you're doing everything and something has to give, but you're afraid it might be you? What if I told you there's a network of over 500,000 women entrepreneurs, all dedicated to supporting each other? A network of women helping women. I'm Sandra Yancey, founder of eWomen Network, and I'm inviting you to join us and become a member. eWomenNetwork.com. We can't wait to meet you.
People really embrace the whole culture of giving first.
Yeah.
And sharing always. I love that.
It's always part of our opening is you're here for to ask, one question that's 5 words. How can I help you? And the more that we're all asking that of each other, the law of reciprocity actually gets in motion, and it does come full circle. There will be people that will ask you, how can I help you? What is it that you need most? What are you struggling with most? If you could change one thing that could change everything, what would that be? If you could wave a magic wand, change one thing that would have the greatest impact on your business, what would that be? And as you have those conversations, there's just so much reciprocity. So you're leading with helping others, but you're going to have so many people asking you the same thing. It just feels so good. There's just a different vibe in the overall energy of the room, don't you think?
I for sure do. So I think it's definitely having that energy of wanting to serve. But then there's the other piece too that women especially do when they show up to events with a girlfriend. And they do everything with that girlfriend.
Yeah.
They sit with the girlfriend. They go to the bathroom with the girlfriend.
Yeah.
They go through the buffet line with their girlfriend. They sit with their girlfriend. They go to every single networking circle with their girlfriend. And they don't actually meet anybody new because they're attached to their girlfriend the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's the worst thing that you could do. And I find that women do it so much. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, maybe you're intimidated to go to an event by yourself, so you want to bring a friend. That's great. Drive together, walk in the room together, but then separate.
Yeah.
You're doing yourself both a
Yeah.
huge disservice if you're just attached to the person that you already know the whole time when you could both be working the room.
Yeah. In fact, I'll work this side of the room for you, Briana. You work that side of the room for me. Let's come together. And now we've got double the amount of contacts that we would have if we were doing everything together.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Women are the worst at that, man. They just stick in their little comfort zone instead of forcing themselves to actually get out there and meet new people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so important now because it is all about the power of relationships. And the more relationships you can establish, the more successful you're going to be. It's just math. It's simple math.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a quote, I want to say it was by the Firestone guy, the guy that started the Firestone company, and which was which Firestone, was it a tire company?
Tire company.
I could just remember this way back when, and I read, he said, all business is about relationships. In the end, all business is about relationships. You can't get anything done. You can't grow without relationships. Obviously, you can't run a business if you don't have customers, which are relationships. You need other people to help you see your blind spots, which are about relationships. I mean, you just can't sit in front of a computer and figure it all out. And what you're getting from the computer is a lot of knowledge, a lot of people telling you what to do, but haven't necessarily really done it. I'm noticing that just in the succession plan that we have put together for 10 years. I mean, it is one thing for somebody to give you the checklist. It is another thing to live and breathe it every day, and I've just learned that I would not take the advice of anybody that's going to teach me how to succession plan my business if they haven't actually done it themselves. Because it's all the nuances that really get you derailed in actually transferring your business, particularly a founder-led business, to somebody else, and kind of the overlapping segue it takes to bring your audience along so that when your time has come to transition out, that they accept the new person, and that's all about relationships, right? Everything in business is ultimately about relationships.
It's funny, as we're talking, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about going to the grocery store. The fact is, it's a grocery store event. I know, as crazy as that sounds, but really everything is a series of events in your life. When you know what I mean? It's all about how we interpret it and receive it. But everything is an event. I mean, and you already know this. You can go through the checkout line and you can affect that cashier just with your greeting, with just your attitude. And how many times have you gone through the cashier's line and you're thinking to yourself, boy, she or he doesn't seem like a happy cookie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just get like a vibe of almost like, gee, I'm sorry to disturb you. Now, you can change, and I like that. I find it to be actually enjoyable to me to be the one that says, "Hey, that's a beautiful pair of earrings you got on there. Those are very unique," or whatever, something nice about them, or something great about this is a wonderful day, and it's amazing how quickly you can change someone's set point,
Oh,
the way they're facing something, and the same thing happens with the with the event.
can I just say to your point, I love this whole thing about that you brought up with the grocery store. I wouldn't have thought about it that way, but I'm on a first name basis with Bob, who is the butcher. It's Bob the butcher, and also Hector, who heads produce. Because every now and then I'll go and I'll want to get some basil, and if you can see that the basil isn't quite so, I want fresh basil.
You are literally on first name basis. I thought this was metaphorical for a second.
Oh, no, Bob the butcher. His name is Bob, and he works in the meat department, but I call him Bob the butcher.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I'm on a first name basis with them, and they say, and they know my name, Mrs. Yancey, because I've ordered a number of special roasts, my crown roasted pork,
Wow.
prime rib. Oh yeah, man, and I always say hi. How are you doing? Is it busy? How's it going? Have you been impacted by when we had the shortage of meat and things like that coming in? And I'm always talking to them, and every now and then I'll go and I'll like look and I'll say, how long has this been here? Do you have any better cuts? These what do I get? Ribeyes look a little small. Let me check in the back for you. They will go in the back. They will bring me. I feel like I'm getting the freshest, the best, kind of thing. And he'll look at me and say, "I got when I do my short ribs, a little fatty here. You want me to cut off some of this fat, and I'll be able to give you just a little bit more. You do that for me, And so when I do my chicken, my Easter chicken,
Yeah.
and it's cut in pieces, I don't cut that chicken. I ask Bob. Bob, would you cut my chicken, my my chicken breast into little pieces? Love to do that for you, Mrs. Yancey. He goes back and the next thing you know, I got a bag of chopped chicken. It just saved me 10, 15 minutes in the cooking. And yeah. And same thing with my basil and my chives and all my things from Hector, who's head of produce. I've developed I look for them. I look for them and see if they're around,
Wow.
I sure do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Next level. See, I don't even go inside of a grocery store.
Well, you got two kids.
I've got an app on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm placing the order. I'm pulling up just the driveway. Tatiana, you don't even have to put on shoes, honey. Let's just pick up our groceries
Exactly.
and pull it up, load it into my cart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's
Yeah,
funny.
that really underscores the fact that people meeting people, talking to people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely not doing any networking in the grocery store. Maybe I should.
I do. I mean, I look at every opportunity. I mean, you brought up grocery store, Kim, and I just think, I never
It's
had
an
really
event.
thought about the
It's an
fact
event.
that, and I also know the checkout people, and I got the one guy that always says hi to me, whatever. And sometimes I just stand in line with him just so that I can connect with him. I don't know what it is. I'm a people person.
You are a people person.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting because you're like that, but you're also an introvert. I'm actually shocked by this because, like, for me, I'm kind of an extroverted introvert. So usually when I'm at the grocery store, I'm not on. I'm
Mm.
kind of like, just give me my stuff. Don't talk to me. but maybe that's the mistake that I'm hearing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Maybe that's my opportunity to grow and see what
Let me
happens.
tell you what happened to me at the grocery store. So I take my recipe, I get all my stuff, and I get home, I don't have my recipe.
Oh yeah, yeah, you've left it.
And I left my recipe in the little tray in the cart. And I called Janet, the store manager.
Okay.
And I said,
Next
Janet,
level.
this is Sandra Yancey. She goes, hi, Mrs. Yancey. I said, I think I left my recipe in my cart, and the cart is in the street. I mean, it's in the parking lot. She goes, oh my gosh, do you know where you parked? And I said, yeah, I do know where I parked. I think I'm like the second or third one over. I had one of the smaller carts or whatever. She goes, hold on, I'll have somebody go check for you. Next thing you know, I'm holding on, no problem. She goes, I've got it. She says, this is your party chicken. And I said, it is my party chicken. She goes, is this a good recipe? I said, it's a great recipe. She says, do you mind if I take a picture of your recipe? I said, Janet, yes. I said, and I'll be right there. I'm going to come back and get my thing. She says, I'll text it to you. I'll take a picture and send it to you. I said, that's okay. I really want my original recipe. It's got all my spots and all my spills and I want my original one so that it goes into my recipe box. And I
Aw.
walked up and she had it right there for me. She had it pinned on their little bulletin board in case she was gone, that with my name above it, Mrs. Yancey's recipe.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you. But I am an
The
introvert.
OG relationship.
Then I get in my car and it's totally silent. There's no music on.
Yeah.
There's no podcast on. There's no, like I need my quiet moment here between the parking lot of the store and home. Hmm.
Yeah, it makes me think about what would you tell people about our conference? Because we never thought when we started the eWomen Network we'd be doing events,
Yeah.
and it tells you just how naive we were in thinking that that women. I remember when we first launched the company, we were telling people about eWomen Network, and people would say, "Oh, it's great. There's no more meetings I've got to go to. We can just meet online." And that's where you learn the secret of all secrets is listen to what they say, but watch what they do.
Yeah.
Okay, watch what they do, because no sooner did people become members of eWomen Network that they wanted to meet, and they were meeting.
Yeah.
And the pools, in pool houses and everything else, where they could pull people together. But I think what we learned from all this is that nothing compares to a live event.
No.
I don't care what, there isn't an email that you can write. There isn't a commercial that you can air that gets the results that you get through a live interaction.
I have to ask you, I'm going to backpedal for a second and then we'll get back to that. But you just made me think of something that I was thinking of in the car this morning. On our very first podcast, we talked about the origin story and the very first conference. And now we're in the thick of planning our 2026 conference. We've just kicked off all of our weekly meetings and we're starting to talk about production and the stage and the huge LED screen. And I'm just curious if 2000 Sandra and Kym Yancey hosting their first conference could see the vision of the conference that it is today.
No.
Was it ever in your... No.
No. First of all, we were taking what we saw happening, which was a huge dog and pony show of speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker, and the next speaker and the next speaker and the next speaker. And what I think is unique about our conference is that there's and it's very humbling for me to say, because, I hit that stage, on Thursday, and I'm on there in, 4-inch heels for 4 hours, as you know, and I don't take a break. And, but the truth of the matter is there's no one more significant, there's no spotlight more significant than you, the attendee. And what I think we do exceptionally well, and always areas for improvement, always things we can work on for sure. But, you have to know where you shine. And I think one of the things where we shine is the level of audience participation. We teach something and then we put them at their tables and then they talk about it and then we process it. What was your aha? What did you learn? What questions? Then we get off the stage, we go into the audience, and we have these mics that you can toss, right? That we can toss around because they're really light, and people grab them and they can ask a question or share a revelation or whatever. And I think the audience participation is what keeps people not only coming back, which is close to 70% of our audience before they leave in 2025. 70% of them sign up for 2026 before they leave, which is kind of unheard of in the event business to say, yes, I'm coming a year in advance. But I think it's what creates the line when we close the main conference room and they go to lunch and that kind of thing. And then we have the doors open up at a certain time and everybody's clamoring to get in. And it's because I think people want to get back because they know it's not just the typical, see a speaker, over and over and over again. It's really the learning and the audience engagement. And I think, that we did not do that in the beginning, Briana.
I know.
Because we didn't have the only models that were out there was one speaker and then the next speaker and then the next speaker, and they weren't invested. They often didn't stay. They came in, they stuck behind stage, they did their shtick on the stage and then they left. There wasn't, and for us, if we bring somebody in from the outside, which is rare, we want them there for the duration, and it's fun to see them. And Ken Cragen humbled me when he would come to our conference, and when he wasn't on stage, he would show up and get a front row seat with his notebook and take notes. Here's like a Hollywood legend.
And that's rare, honestly. Because, we bring in other VIP speakers and they'll at least do a dinner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll be present. But I mean, that He was such a gem.
He
But
surely
yeah,
was.
and
Laura Herring,
not
the
knowing
exact
when,
same thing.
I was going to say, not knowing when a person is listening to this, if you're hearing Ken Cragen for the first time, he is the guy that is the organizer of We Are the World, put that whole piece together. He did Hands Across America. And at one time, his office on Sunset Boulevard, 48% of all the number one selling artists in the world were under his management. So there's just
Yeah, he was
some context is
just a
that name.
legend, Hollywood legend, a brand builder. I mean, so much I would say of my backbone that I have today as a CEO was from what I learned and invested in him. And may he now rest in peace.
Met him as a result of what?
Yes. Exactly, Briana. Duh, moment here. So how I met him was Briana was 19 years old. She had moved to LA. You wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to come and visit you. And you were at that age where you're like, no, mom, don't come. Parents don't come and check on their kids, kind of thing. You had it all together, kind of thing. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I get out to see you, have an excuse to see? I'm already in LA, so can I take you out to dinner, kind of thing. And I said, okay, I know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to accept every speaking engagement that I can in LA. And I got a call from a guy, Larry Benet, who's a dear friend of ours to this day, who was running a networking group that unfortunately no longer exists. Great networking group called SANG, Speakers Authors Networking Group. And he had found out about us for something and called you, I think, Kym, to see if he could book me to be a speaker. And when you came in, it's like 95, 96% men, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Where is it? It's in Hollywood. I'm there. I'm booked. I'm going. I can get there. I can see Briana. And I got there the day before, around 3 or 3:30, called Briana. She wasn't ready. She was working. And so I was taking her out to dinner. And so I went downstairs because I was speaking the next day. So I thought, let me just go down there and get a feel for the room. I walk in and I make eye contact with a guy that's got an empty seat next to him. And we start doing charades, looking at, can I come over there and sit down? Because I didn't know if somebody had just stepped away and gone to the bathroom and they were coming back or not. And he waved me over and ended up being Ken Cragen. And I didn't know him at the time. I remember talking to you. You asked me if I'd met anybody interesting. I said, yeah, I met this guy with this really great voice. I bet you he's a Hollywood DJ. And you said, did you get his name? I said, yeah, I got his card. And his name is Ken Cragen. And you were like, the Ken Cragen? And ended up opening up my laptop and putting in his name and clicking on images. You were like, is that the guy you sat next to? And I said, yeah. And because you had experience, with 6 albums on Capitol Records and one that went gold, you knew in the music industry his name. And you were like, Sandra, you have no idea who you were sitting next to. And that became the journey, because I asked him why he was there. He said he had just launched his book, Life is a Contact Sport. I said, I'll go and buy it. He goes, you don't have to buy it. I live here and I'll bring you one tomorrow. And so, he saw me in the morning and we ended up sitting next to each other and we just started this relationship. And, he became so critically important in my life on so many levels, personally and professionally. It's just, and one of my greatest honors, we were just talking not too long ago, last story, of, what have been some of the, most poignant moments in your life. And one of them for me was when Ken's wife, Kathy, asked me to be the closing speaker and the only woman, at his funeral. It was such a huge honor for me knowing that this is man. I mean, I was with Ken when his phone rang and it was Lionel Richie or Quincy Jones, or, if you have Netflix, you need to go see the documentary called The Greatest Night in Pop, because it is so entertaining. It's about the entire the making of the We Are the World song. And in the first 5 minutes, Lionel Richie, who kicks it off, mentions Ken. I mean, he was the through line, as you like to say, Briana, that, really pulled the whole thing together, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone to that event.
Yeah, what happens when
Yeah.
you get in the room.
Yes,
It is the epitome.
it is.
I remember, talking about that whole event experience, which it's changing. I mean, I know we're changing it from the standpoint of how we do things, but it is changing because of, AI and what it's there are a lot of people who aren't doing events anymore.
Big mistake.
Yeah, big
Mistake.
But they're also struggling to try to figure. People try to figure out the easy, quick way, the fast way. And all of this takes time.
Yeah.
Cultivating a relationship, building that trust takes time. And
You have to be in it to win it. You do. You
Well,
have to feed it every day. You have to be consistent and persistent.
well, I was thinking what I was going to say is that I might maybe our last Ken Kraken story for the day, but uh, when he spoke at the conference and he said you can't do anything without getting someone's attention. So think about that first of all. You can't do anything. I don't care what it is. You've got to get someone's attention.
Yeah.
And he said that, and all of a sudden a marching band comes
Yeah.
marching through the conference. Right down through all the tables is a marching band.
Through the back doors.
And
Mhm.
I remember him saying, "Did I get your attention?"
Yeah.
It was so poignant, wasn't it? And
You
think
know,
about all he had to do. I mean, he lives in Hollywood. He had to find a band, a local band in Dallas, because he was speaking at our
marching
conference,
band.
at marching band in Dallas. He had to talk to them, organize it. Of course, he leveraged who he was and all of that, and probably got a high school band so excited
Yeah.
to walk in and perform for him. But nonetheless, and then he had to orchestrate getting them all shipped. Not shipped literally, but bussed, transported, to the conference and keep it a secret because he didn't want people to see anything. So they all had to come once we were in session
Yeah.
and line up very quietly in the back. I mean, it was just, he really proved to me that he used to say it's easier to do the impossible than the ordinary. And the truth of the matter is it wasn't impossible for him to do that, but it was so like, it was an impossible thing to think about. And he would allow himself to go and think of impossible types of things. And then he made it happen and made it
It
unforgettable
was
as a result.
unreal.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys something. With our conference coming up, in terms of the experience, what would be your, let's call it commercial. It doesn't have to be a commercial. But
Mm.
what would be your commercial? And I think each of us should do it in terms of why they should be there, why they don't want to miss the e-women.
So this is definitely not pre-planned.
Yeah.
Just put us
no,
on the
no,
spot moment. Okay. You go first, Bree.
Okay. I feel like it's a quiz. Like I don't want to fail.
It's not a quiz. It's just,
No, I think what I love about our conference, because I've gone to several conferences, obviously, and I think what's really unique about the eWomen Network Conference, EWN Icon, is that it's not just a B12 shot. Like I go to conferences and I just leave energized, and you're going to leave energized. But what I love is that we really get nitty gritty and strategic and actually pull back the curtain on what we're actively doing. And this year specifically, to be able to pull back the curtain on this whole 10X journey, even for the people that don't want to 10X their business, even just to double their business, even just to make more money, period, what we're doing and pulling back the curtain on this year, I think is going to be phenomenal. So it's not just the B12, it's also the actionable strategies that you walk away with. And then the people, like like you said, there's a lot of baked in interaction.
Yeah.
And so I've never been to another event where they really facilitate intentional connection and networking.
Yeah, like who's a seasoned pro veteran that's been coming to the conference and who's brand new and setting up a buddy system.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that you don't have to do everything with that person, but you're exchanging phone numbers so you can text, are you good? Do you need a seat? Do you know where dinner? Do you have dinner plans tonight? You know what I mean?
Making sure that they're feeling included.
Yeah.
They're maximizing the experience because there is so much. I mean, we have the full program happening on the stage. We have exhibitors, we have connection time, there's lunches, there's dinners, there's all of these different things that you can take advantage of. And our community is really welcoming in that way.
Yeah. So I'm so excited for August, and we've started. We start in April, 2 hours every single Monday, in planning. Every member is on the team, is on the call, so that everybody understands what everybody's doing, has an appreciation for what everybody's doing, sees how all the pieces come together. Because it's almost like a watch. You kind of see it on the surface, but you kind of lift the surface back to kind of see all the moving integrated parts. And so, what is it, the 12th through the 15th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a shameless plug here. I mean, honestly, if you are in a place where you really want to accelerate your success, what I love about what we're doing is we are 10Xing our business, and we haven't had even a chance to tell our team yet, but here we are in middle of April, and we've already done the production, the business that we did last year to July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we really are having this mammoth amount of growth. We're learning a a lot of lessons. And what I
You've
love,
implemented a ton and
yeah,
shown up very differently to get these results.
and we teach, we share. There's enough for everyone. So we only teach what we have positive results on. We've got the metrics, the analytics, everything to show the progress, and then literally peeling back exactly what we've done. And then you can say, okay, so all right, that works for you and your business model, Kym, Sandra, and Briana. But what about me? What about me as a coach? Or what about me as a restaurant owner? Or what about me as a lawn care company owner? No matter what it is that you do, then the opportunity is, how do you adapt? How do you adapt so that you have the knowledge to know exactly how you go about applying what we've done in your business? Because the fundamentals and the foundation are all the same. And you get the opportunity to process that and ask questions and get the clarity that you need. And you walk out with a plan. You literally walk out with a plan. I have written an entire experience about how you take all your notes and identify what are the things that when you get back home, you know exactly what it is you want to start implementing. And so you literally leave with an action plan, not a I wonder where I start kind of thing with all of these great juicy nuggets, but I haven't a clue where I begin.
That's great. I love that. I tell people, here's what I say to people. First of all, how many conferences are you aware of where 75 to 80% of the audience buys their ticket for the next year's conference a year in advance?
It's 70%. 70%. Yep.
Buy their tickets.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why you want to be there. Not only are you going to find incredible ideas, you're going to be emotionally stimulated in ways that you've never been before.
Yeah.
Right? There is a level of camaraderie and kindness that permeates the entire conference, unlike anything you've ever seen. And I would tell people, you want to come here because it's going to give you what you need to help you take your business to places that you've only dreamed about. I mean, honestly.
Or maybe not even been able to dream about yet. I mean, just the possibilities that crack open.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. But I love the way I love the way it unfolds. I love the short content segments that we do. We have a whole section where people speak for 10 minutes, and it's incredible. It's so energizing because, in 10 minutes, you're getting the best that someone has to offer.
The best.
The best. And they're all pros, a variety of topics and those kinds of things. The teaching you do, Sandra, is unbelievable. I mean, it's just how you do it. It's just incredible. It's
well, all of us. I mean, Briana, we all three are, because it's taking all three of us to 10x the business.
Yeah.
So
you're supposed to say something nice about me first. I kind of led and said something nice about you.
It's just talking about your brilliance, honey. Yeah. Just your brilliance.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll give you more
sure.
time. No, but you know what? It is. What do we learn too? I remember going to conferences where it had all kinds of celebrity names and brands.
Yeah.
And lots of people. No real connections are being made. Mm-hmm. No depth is being created. No camaraderie is being created. I've seen it. I mean, I've watched it.
I think too, like some of the content, even from these celebrities that have since launched brands, their launch strategy looks a lot different than the average entrepreneur or solopreneur because of their access, because of their reach. And so their journey to bringing a brand to market is kind of unrelatable for majority of women in business, just to be real about it. And so I think that having real people come in, we have a phenomenal.
Oh, so excited. Yeah.
In fact, by the time this podcast launches, the news will definitely be out. So can I just share?
Sure.
So this year we're bringing a phenomenal woman entrepreneur. Her name is Candace Nelson. If you've ever heard of Sprinkles Cupcake, she was the founder of Sprinkles Cupcake. She was the pioneer and created the cupcake industry in terms of a brick and mortar cupcake. She was the inventor of the cupcake
ATM.
She has been a co-producer and a guest judge on Cupcake Wars on the Food Network. She's been a guest shark on Shark Tank. She has a new concept that she's launching, and she's got a New York Times bestselling book. She's just a powerhouse.
And on top of that, she sold this amazing, profitable company.
Yeah.
And then they didn't know how to manage it, and they had to close all of them.
Yeah.
And
I can't wait to ask her,
me too.
News.
Yeah.
This is new news. I don't think she's been on a stage since this has happened.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to have that conversation first, which is so exciting. I cannot wait to have her at our
Yeah, but
conference.
somebody that would, started just making cupcakes,
Yeah.
and had an idea and grew it into franchises and, all of the things, and then sold it and then watched it run into the ground and what that had to feel like.
Oh,
And then, moving into her next new thing. It's
Yeah.
going to be so
It's
great.
going to be great. It's going to be great.
So, August the 12th through the 15th, my shameless plug.
In
I'm
Dallas, Texas, the
in-
Fairmont Hotel.
Yep, we
mhm.
own 100% of the meeting space. Everything is going to be all eWomen Network. We got an amazing room rate for our ladies and gentlemen that are coming, and I want you there. EWNicon.com. EWN for eWomen Network. Icon stands for International Conference, but the play is that we really do attract iconic women. So it's EWNicon.com. Yeah.
Have you done this before?
I think I have. I have.
Good.
Man, I guess she doesn't just mean business.
She means millions.
This one. Right here. And that one.
And